Jade Dynasty Episode 79. In the previous episode, Ghost Li awakened after surviving a near-fatal calamity, his energy surging to new heights as he unexpectedly grasped the long-lost fourth volume of the Forbidden Cultivation Manual. Though his strength advanced dramatically, a faint sense of disappointment lingered within him, a feeling he could not name. As he wandered through Tian Yin Temple, even the monks sensed he had changed, calmer, yet carrying a deeper storm inside. He visited the abbot, who urged him to sever worldly attachments and embrace enlightenment. But Ghost Li refused, insisting that resentment, gratitude, affection, and hatred were the very things that made him who he was. Before leaving, he examined a weathered stone bearing the fossil of a seashell, an ancient reminder that the world endlessly shifts. And even mountains were once oceans. Yet despite understanding the impermanence of all things, Ghost Li still could not let go of what bound his heart. At the end of the previous episode, he rose into the sky, carrying unresolved emotions and newfound power into an uncertain future. What will happen next? Stay tuned. And the story continues. Qingyun Hill, Big Bamboo Peak. The battle at Qingyun had already passed for some time. And after that, because of the Zhu Xian sword matter, Reverend Dao Zan kept a close watch on Big Bamboo Valley for a period of time, but lately perhaps because Big Bamboo Valley disciples were too obedient. Sect head did not send the warnings as frequent. The valley slowly settled back into its familiar quiet rhythm. The injured disciples, Wu Duya and He Dazi, had mostly recovered, though they still could not perform heavy work. Life drifted on with a gentler pace, and the disciples continued to clean the room of the junior brother who had long left, keeping it as immaculate as before. On this particular day, Song Darren and Du Bishu went about their usual chores, chatting as they entered the courtyard. But suddenly, something broke the calm. A gray shadow flashed across the secluded yard, so fast it seemed almost unreal. Startled, the two disciples immediately dropped their tools and gave chase. Yet despite searching the courtyard, the roof, and every possible hiding spot, the figure had vanished without a trace. Then Du Bishu noticed something out of place. The window of Zhang Xiaofan's old room, usually shut tight, was slightly open. The two exchanged worried glances, both thinking the same fear. Could their long-lost junior brother have returned? Changed beyond recognition? Unable to hold back their anxiety, they pushed open the door. A gray figure leapt across the room, landing on the bed with bright round eyes staring straight at them. And then came a familiar cry. It was Xiao Hui. The mischievous monkey sat happily chewing wild fruit, the floor littered with pits. Soon, everyone gathered in observed silence hall. Even Tian Buyi, though stern-faced, did not explode in temper. For all of them knew what Xiao Hui's presence meant. The monkey had always accompanied one person, never separating for more than a decade. If Xiao Hui was here, where was that person now? The tension hung heavily in the hall, broken only by the cheerful chaos caused by Xiao Hui and the old dog Da Huang. The Go barked endlessly, circling Xiao Hui with excitement. Xiao Hui teased Da Huang by tossing an apple into the air, and the dog dashed out, catching it before it fell. The scene left the disciples stunned and Tian Buyi grumbling, though even his irritation lacked its usual force. Once Xiao Hui settled back into the valley, an unusual liveliness returned. The monkey and dog ran about endlessly, filling Big Bamboo Valley with noise and laughter that had not been heard since their little junior sister left after her marriage. Yet with this happiness came tension. Tian Buyi continued brooding, unable to dismiss his suspicion that if Xiao Hui had returned, then perhaps the boy he had raised, the boy who had turned into Ghost Li, might be somewhere nearby. Suru tried to reassure him, reasoning that the monkey might have simply wandered in search of its missing master and returned here out of familiarity. Tian Buyi pretended to accept this, though he still muttered curses about fruit pits and clumsy monkeys, especially after slipping on one and nearly falling in front of Suru. Morning arrived with renewed activity. As disciples emerged from their rooms, they saw Xiao Hui and Da Huang already playing loudly outside the hall. Tian Buyi appeared, scolding the pair for disturbing his sleep. But the moment he insulted Da Huang, The old dog barked loudly in protest, stunning the disciples. Tian Bai's face darkened. In anger, he declared that Da Huang should be slaughtered at noon and cooked into dog meat. Du Bishu, assigned to fulfill this outrageous order, was horrified. He knew perfectly well that Da Huang was Tian Bai's favorite. Even tugging a strand of the dog's fur could earn punishment. His senior brothers teased him mercilessly, leaving him anxious and sweating, uncertain whether disobeying or obeying would be the greater disaster. By noon, he had tied Da Huang near the kitchen, while Xiao Hui hung from a tree branch watching curiously. As Du Bishu cooked nervously inside, he heard barking, then muffled sounds, but thought nothing of it. When he finally finished preparing the meal and stepped out, Da Huang and Xiao Hui had disappeared. Panic set in as he searched everywhere, fearing his teacher's wrath. The disciples were gathering when Da Huang's bark suddenly echoed from the direction of Zhang Xiaofan's old room. They rushed there, only to find the dog barking at the sky, with no trace of Xiao Hui. Just as mysteriously as he had appeared, the monkey had vanished once more. At lunchtime, only Suru came to dine. Tian Buyi had secluded himself again, unwilling to see anyone. Life at Big Bamboo Valley resumed its normal quiet, though occasionally Da Huang barked toward the sky, as if calling for someone unseen. Far away, in the depths of Qing Yun's vast forests, a solitary figure drifted down like a phantom through the mist. It was Ghost Li. Xiao Hui perched happily on his shoulder, its wine gourd once again full. Unlike the monkey, Ghost Li's expression remained cold and unreadable as he surveyed the silent woods. Suddenly he spoke, commanding whoever was hiding to reveal themselves. A moment later, Mr. Ghost appeared from the shadows, offering Ghost King's message. The sect head had been worried after hearing of Ghost Li's injuries at Illusory Moon Cave. If Ghost Li was still hurt, he was to return home to recuperate. But if he had recovered, the Ghost King had a mission for him. The beast deity had escaped after the battle at Qing Yun. He had slaughtered countless holy sect followers, and the southern border would be his most likely refuge. The Ghost King wanted Ghost Li, who was most familiar with the southern territories, to pursue him. Ghost Li agreed without hesitation, but then Mr. Ghost stepped closer, lowering his voice. The Ghost King had issued another secret command, one of utmost importance. Beside the beast deity traveled a ferocious creature called Teodi. Whatever happened, Teodi must be captured alive and brought back to the Ghost King. Ghost Li questioned the purpose, but Mr. Ghost claimed ignorance. Ghost Li studied him for a long moment before turning away, his figure disappearing in an instant. Alone in the quiet forest, Mr. Ghost murmured to himself in confusion. How had Ghost Li's strength grown so rapidly in mere days? And those mysterious men in black who rescued him, who were they? Truly? That day, that group of men in black that saved him, who are they exactly? His low mumblings, drifted with the wind, quietly echoed in the forest, eventually disappeared. After the calamity with the beast deity, from north to south, appalling desertion sites were seen everywhere. Not a single human for thousands of miles, not a sound from hundreds of villages, were some of the frequent encounters. The land lay in ruin. Entire regions were stripped of life. And the deeper one traveled toward the south, the more overwhelming the devastation grew. Villages had collapsed into broken frames of wood and stone. Towns once filled with voices and market cries were nothing but silent husks. Their roads littered with bones bleached pale by wind and sun. The air itself seemed to mourn, carrying with it the dust of a world struggling to recover. Yet slowly, after confirming that the catastrophe had finally passed, displaced people began to return home. Families, thin, weary, but hopeful, walked north to south in long, desperate lines. Travelers carried not only what little belongings they had left but also grief. As the sides of the roads remained scattered with the bodies of those who had died from cold, hunger, exhaustion, or the final attacks of lingering beasts. Though small pockets of demon beasts occasionally terrorized the remote paths, the larger threat had ended. Disciples of righteous sects accompanied the refugees, subduing any remaining monsters when news spread. But beneath this fragile restoration of order ran another current. Many cultivators secretly hunted for the wounded beast deity. certain that it still roamed somewhere in the world. Glory, merit, and the temptation of powerful treasures fueled their pursuit. The safety of common people was, sadly, not the foremost concern in everyone's heart. Amid the returning crowd walked three familiar figures: Zhou Yixian, Xiao Huan, and the wild dog Taoist. Their pace was humble, not driven by ambition nor by glory. Zhou Yixian still carried his bamboo pole with the immortal guide banner, though the once bright cloth had faded into a torn patchwork of gray and yellow. It fluttered wearily in the cold wind, as if the hardship of the world had been dyed directly into its fibers. To avoid further misunderstandings with frightened refugees, the wild dog Taoist kept his face wrapped in cloth. His peculiar appearance had caused many to mistake him for a demon beast. The cloth ensured safety, though it was a constant source of discomfort. Meanwhile, Xiao Huan, young, bright-eyed, and gentle, moved through the weary crowd like a small ray of warmth. She gave food to the starving, helped the sick, supported the elderly and weak, and even paused to bury the dead with her own hands when others had long grown numb to the sight of death. And wherever she went, the wild dog Taoist followed closely, assisting her in everything she attempted. He dug graves, carried the injured, and obeyed without complaint. His eyes rarely left her, filled with quiet devotion. But compassion has a cost. Their food supply quickly dwindled, and finally, the three had no choice but to step away from the road and search the wilderness for something, anything, to eat. As they climbed a low hill under a moonless night sky, Xiao Huan reminded the Taoist gently that he no longer needed to hide his face. He unwrapped the cloth, looking self-conscious yet relieved. Zhou Yixian grumbled about starving because Xiao Huan had given away their rations, and she soothed him with soft words. Wanting to help, the wild dog Taoist immediately volunteered to hunt for food. He disappeared into the forest with determination. But when he returned some time later, triumphantly holding a wild bird, his joy froze. The clearing was empty. Zhou Yixian and Xiao Huan were gone. A cold dread crept into his bones. He searched the ground and found disordered footprints, along with a large print, 3-clawed. Nothing human. Panic twisted his face. But then, a distant howl echoed through the night, mournful and sharp like a wolf's cry. His fear trembled on the edge of his resolve. And then, with a roar rising from his chest, he charged into the forest like a mad dog unleashed. Deep in the woods, he found them, two enormous demon beasts. Creatures with tiger heads and lion bodies had built a crude nest amid piled leaves and bones. Captured humans lay nearby, barely alive, reduced to thin, trembling forms. Zhou Yixian and Xiao Huan stood among them, terrified but unharmed. Upon seeing this, the wild dog Taoist attacked without hesitation. His first clash left a deep wound in his shoulder, but he managed to injure one of the beasts in return. The two monsters towered over him with their murderous roars, circling him cautiously only because of the weapon he held. He knew the truth. Facing one of them, he might survive. Facing two, he would surely die. He could still flee, run into the forest and save his own life. But every time he glanced at Xiao Huan's frightened eyes, he could not take a single step backward. The beasts pounced, and at that moment, driven by instinct and desperation, the wild dog Taoist also leapt forward. Their bodies collided with brutal force. Blood burst into the air. The beast's claws tore deep into his flesh, while his fang-like weapon plunged through the heart of the wounded creature. Both screamed, man and beast, and both fell. The remaining monster, enraged by its companion's death, prepared to tear him apart. Yet in that final instant, Zhou Yixian managed to pull the wild dog Taoist away using a half-mastered teleportation talisman technique. Though both of them crashed to the ground in a heap. But the surviving beast did not hesitate. It launched itself at the two men. Wild dog Taoist was gravely wounded, barely conscious. Zhou Yixian was helpless. And then, Xiao Huan appeared. She threw herself forward, shielding them with her small body, crying out desperately for a heartbeat. The wild dog Taoist stared at her, something inside him breaking open. Fear, longing, and fierce protectiveness surged all at once. In that instant, he moved. summoning whatever remained of his strength. He shoved Xiao Huan aside and hurled himself at the demon beast. The two crashed into a violent struggle. The beast raked him mercilessly, shredding flesh from bone, but he clung to it like a creature possessed, refusing to let go. Screams filled the forest. Blood splattered across the ground. Seeing this, the other captives, starved, terrified, but desperate, rushed forward with sticks, stones, and bare hands. They attacked the beast in a frenzy until its roars weakened, then faded, and finally stopped completely. Only then did people fall back, gasping, trembling. Xiao Huan tried to pull Wild Dog Taoist free, but he was tangled with the corpse. His hands had torn deep into the beast's chest, and it took several people to separate them. When she finally lowered him onto the ground, Xiao Huan pressed her fingers beneath his nose, searching for breath. Nothing. Her face crumpled. Zhou Yixian stood frozen. The forest seemed to darken around them. The Wild Dog Taoist lay still, his strange face twisted with pain, yet faintly smiling, as though in the moment of death he had found a shard of peace he never possessed in life. In Xiao Huan's cries and chokes, under the faint light in the darkness, Wild Dog Taoist's strange face was full of pain, but a twisted faint smile indistinctly could be seen. He died, like a mad dog that had died. In this world, who was once sober, those that were lucky to escape, after resting, were either quiet or, after offering a few words of comfort, left this bloodied, terrible place one by one. In this troubled times, whose life wasn't valuable, and who would care about another's life? The forest lay in an exhausted silence, as though even the night itself recoiled from the carnage that had unfolded. One by one, the survivors slipped away, clutching their lives tightly, unwilling to linger in a place that had already consumed so many souls. For them, survival was its own miracle. Sympathy was a luxury they could not afford. Not far away, Zhou Yixian and Xiao Huan struggled out from the foul beast's lair. The air reeked of dried blood and rot, thick enough to choke the breath. They could not bear to stay even a moment longer within such filth. Together, with trembling arms and heavy hearts, they dragged the limp body of Wild Dog Taoist back into the open clearing at the forest's edge. His body still felt faintly warm, as if some lingering remnant of life clung stubbornly to him. But warmth could not disguise truth. Death, cold and absolute, was already seeping in. Zhou Yixian let out a weary sigh as he sat beside the corpse. His brows furrowed deeply, regret playing across his aged face. Beside him, Xiao Huan knelt in silence, her tears dripping steadily onto Wild Dog Taoist's unmoving hand. The night wind rustled the treetops, sending low moans through the branches, sounds that only deepened the sorrow clinging to the clearing. Unseen by the grieving pair, a man cloaked completely in black watched them from the darkness. His presence was silent, his breath undetectable, though he easily possessed enough power to destroy the beasts that had caused this tragedy. He had stood back earlier, observing without the slightest inclination to intervene. Mortal attachment and mortal suffering were nothing more than shifting shadows to him. Now, with eyes cold and sharp, he studied the girl and the old man, as though evaluating some curious spectacle. After a long silence, Zhou Yixian finally whispered, voice hoarse, "That's enough, Xiao Huan. He is gone. Let us find a place to bury him so he can rest in peace." At his words, Xiao Huan trembled, her sobbing swelled abruptly, and she turned toward him with anguish. "Grandfather, you know so much, you always know more than you say. Why can't you save him? Isn't there any way?" Zhou Yixian forced a bitter smile. "I am neither a king of the underworld nor a deity of the heavens. You give me far too much credit. The magic that can return life is far beyond my mortal reach. But Priest Wild Dog died, he died saving us." Xiao Huan choked out, voice breaking. Zhou Yixian bowed his head, his expression heavy. "I misjudged him. I thought him greedy and foolish. Who would have believed he carried such loyalty and heart? But it is too late to regret. Come, child, let us give him a proper burial." But Xiao Huan did not move. Her tears continued to fall, soaking into the earth around Wild Dog Taoist's still hands. In the darkness, the man in black observed her, but his eyes held no trace of pity. To him, grief was a passing storm, loud, dramatic, yet ultimately inconsequential. Zhou Yixian stood and went looking for tools. But in this wilderness, there was nothing useful to be found. After much searching, he resorted to breaking off a sturdy branch and scraping at the soil. But for all his effort, the ground yielded only shallow, stubborn resistance. A grave would take hours, perhaps longer. Frustration washed over him. Is even a peaceful burial denied to him? He muttered, discarding the branch. When he turned back, something about Xiao Huan's behavior froze him in place. She had stopped crying. Her eyes were still red, but an eerie determination had settled into her expression. She stood, wiped her tears, picked up another branch, and began clearing leaves and debris around Wild Dog Taoist's body, sweeping a clean circle into the forest floor. At first, Zhou Yixian assumed she was tidying the area for a burial. But as the circle widened, as the clearing grew unnaturally precise, a chill crept down his spine. Something was wrong. Xiao Huan, he called uneasily. What are you doing? Her voice came quiet but resolute. I want to save him. Zhou Yixian paled. Even the man hidden in the shadows stiffened as her words cut through the night. What did you say? The old man demanded, shocked. I want to save him, she repeated, steady and clear. But how? Zhou Yixian pressed, anxiety sharpening his tone. She said nothing. Instead, she knelt and began positioning Wild Dog Taoist's limbs, arranging his arms into a ritualized stance. Crossing one leg beneath the other, Zhou Yixian's eyes widened as recognition struck him. You intend to perform the soul-collecting spell? His voice rose sharply. Have you lost your mind? Xiao Huan hesitated only briefly before whispering. Grandfather, it's the only thing I know that might save him. Zhou Yixian exploded, angrier than he had ever been with her. Nonsense. That spell is forbidden. It belongs to the ghost sect. It bends the laws of the underworld itself. It risks your life, your spirit, your future, and it only works when the person still breathes. When the soul lingers near the body, he is dead, child, truly dead. His soul could be anywhere, scattered, lost, already sinking into the underworld. Do you intend to chase it into the depths of hell? But Xiao Huan pressed on, tears mixing with desperate resolve. He only died moments ago. There must still be hope. If we wait any longer, there will be none. Zhou Yixian grabbed her shoulders. His voice dropped to a harsh whisper. If you attempt this spell on a corpse, your cultivation will collapse. Your life will shorten drastically. Last time, when you saved Jin Ping-er's fading soul, you lost an entire year of your life. Do you understand what this means? This time, you could lose decades. You may never grow old. You may die before reaching adulthood. Xiao Huan, think. For the first time, fear flickered in her expression. But then she looked at the lifeless man before her, the man who had shielded them, fought for them, died for them without hesitation. She whispered, he died because of us. If he had not stayed, if he had not come back for us, he would still be alive. Grandfather, he traded his life for ours. How can I do nothing? How can I stand by and let him vanish? Her voice steadied, filled with quiet conviction. His fate was not heaven's design. He chose it, for us, so I must choose too. Zhou Yixian finally fell silent. Her determination was immovable. With a long, exhausted sigh, he looked up at the night sky, helpless, defeated. In the shadows, the mysterious man's gaze sharpened, a faint glimmer lighting the darkness of his eyes. Something about the girl had captured his interest. As the night deepened, the yin energy in the forest thickened like a suffocating mist. And there, within that heavy, ghost-tainted air, the ritual began. Xiao Huan sliced her arm, allowing drops of blood to fall one by one onto the forest floor. She circled Wild Dog Taoist slowly, using her blood to draw a pattern around him. The lines twisted and curved into a ritual array, its shape simple yet unmistakably sinister. As the pattern took form, faint ghostly wails drifted through the trees. The air chilled sharply. Zhou Yixian shivered as black shadows shifted at the edge of the clearing. The man hidden in the darkness frowned. Startled, this formation, he had seen one like it before. The great shaman. The ritual used to save Bai Yao. But Xiao Huan's version was smaller, much weaker, drawn with her own blood alone. Still, the resemblance was undeniable. By the time she finished the circle, her face had gone pale, her body trembling. Zhou Yixian moved to steady her, but she simply offered him a weak smile, then sat cross-legged at the head of the formation. Suddenly, a piercing ghostly cry split the night. The forest darkened as though swallowed by shadow. From every direction came yin wind, cold and shrieking. Countless spiritual presences pressed in, watching, waiting, hungry. Xiao Huan closed her eyes, hands folded against her chest, chanting a low incantation. The blood formation beneath her flared to life, glowing and pulsing. The blood began to move, flowing like living liquid, and with it, tendrils of black energy spread across her face. Ghosts swarmed, drawn irresistibly to the living sacrifice of blood. Zhou Yixian watched in horror. She was losing ground, her strength was wavering. Without a remnant soul to guide her, she was searching blindly through a sea of wandering spirits. And those spirits, furious and desperate, crashed over her like a tidal wave. Her body shook violently, dark energy clung to her skin, blood trickled from her lips. But she refused to stop. The forest writhed with grief, rage, and torment. The cries of the dead echoed through her mind. Still, she searched. She would not let Wild Dog Taoist's soul vanish. Zhou Yixian trembled with helpless dread. He could not intervene without shattering the spell entirely and killing her. Yet standing still felt like betrayal. Before he could act, a figure appeared in front of him, a shadow darker than the night. The man in black. His voice rasped coldly, "If you value her life, do not move." And then he strode into the center of the storm. He flicked his arms, releasing several strange objects that shot into the earth around the formation. As they embedded themselves, the blood pattern surged, glowing brighter, reddening like fresh flame. A protective light enveloped Xiao Huan, pushing back the ghosts. Her breath calmed, her strength steadied. With a final effort, she extended her hand, grasped at the air, and pulled downward, seizing something unseen. Then she grabbed Wild Dog Taoist's hand. The ghosts shrieked, furious, and surged forward, but the red barrier held. She repeated the motion with her other hand, fighting through overwhelming resistance. Her body shook, sweat and blood mingling on her skin. But with the black-clad stranger's intervention, she pushed through the final barrier and seized Wild Dog Taoist's other hand. A sharp crack of energy burst through the clearing. A dark red glow shot through his body, sweeping from his palm to his head in a brilliant flash. His entire figure lit up once, vibrant and shocking, and then dimmed again. Silence. And then, a faint, soft breath escaped Wild Dog Taoist's lips. At that moment, Xiao Huan managed to open her eyes, stared intently in front of her. Wild Dog Taoist's head, suddenly tilted, actually let out a breath. Xiao Huan was overjoyed, relieved. Darkness suddenly in front of her eyes. She had already fainted. Deep into the night, Wild Dog Taoist, who had passed through the gates of hell and by luck was pulled back. Right now most of his injuries were already bandaged up, although he still looked weak but lying on the ground. His breathing weak yet gentle. For the time being his condition was not critical. Lying beside him was Xiao Huan, still unconscious from the tremendous effort she had spent calling his lost soul back from the darkness. Though pale and exhausted, her life was in no danger, and Zhou Yixian, sitting protectively at her side, could finally breathe a little easier. But his heart was far from calm. His wary gaze kept drifting toward the dark-clad figure standing silently a short distance away. That man, wrapped in a veil of black from head to toe, was no stranger. Zhou Yixian had met him earlier at the foot of Qingyun Mountain, in Heyang City. Even then, the man had radiated an eerie aura, clearly someone deeply versed in the mysterious ghost way. They had barely escaped him that time thanks to Ghost Li. Now, by some twist of fate, he had saved Xiao Huan instead. Whether this shadowy figure was a friend or foe, Zhou Yixian could not determine, and that uncertainty left him deeply uneasy. Yet while Zhou Yixian was troubled, the black-veiled man, Mr. Ghost, was equally unsettled. His sudden intervention tonight was something he had not planned. The Ghost Way had always lived under suspicion, reviled even among the unorthodox paths. Its practitioners, few and hidden, were accustomed to being alone. Mr. Ghost, one of the last and strongest of his lineage, had followed Ghost Li southward only out of his own secret purposes. Never did he expect to witness a girl like Xiao Huan using the Lost Collect soul spell, a technique so old, so rare, that even he as a master had never learned it. Her aptitude was shocking, her recklessness was alarming, and when the countless wandering spirits had surged in fury and nearly devoured her, he had acted almost on instinct, stepping into her formation and sweeping the ghosts aside so she could complete the spell. Why he did it, he could not explain even to himself. Time passed in uneasy silence until Xiao Huan finally stirred, whispering weakly for her grandfather. Zhou Yixian rushed to help her up, relieved to see her awake. She quickly checked on Wild Dog Taoist and, seeing him stable, allowed herself a small smile, until her eyes landed on the dark figure in the shadows. She shrank back, startled. Zhou Yixian quietly explained that this man had saved her in her most dangerous moment. Remembering the sudden surge of power that had cleared her formation, Xiao Huan gathered her courage, bowed slightly, and thanked him. Mr. Ghost gave no response of courtesy. Instead, his cold voice cut through the air as he asked where she had learned the Ghost Way. Xiao Huan blinked in confusion. She had never even heard the term. Step by step, he questioned her until she revealed that she had found strange markings inside a dry well during childhood, copied them out of boredom, and never truly understood their origin. Her honesty stunned him. The Collect Soul spell, carved casually into an old well? A secret that should have vanished generations ago? His thoughts grew heavy. Something long buried in the Ghost Way's past was stirring. After a moment, he asked Xiao Huan to walk a few steps aside with him. Though Zhou Yixian frowned, Xiao Huan agreed, trusting the man who had saved her. Up close, Mr. Ghost asked her what she had felt when she faced the mass of spirits. She confessed in embarrassment that she had been terrified, that hideous, shifting illusions had overwhelmed her vision. He told her bluntly that this fear was natural. Most mortals feared ghosts only because they feared the shadows within themselves. Ghosts, he said, were simply souls wandering between death and rebirth. Their violent outburst earlier had come from desperate longing to escape their suffering. Humans and ghosts were far more alike than people wished to admit. His voice softened ever so slightly as he explained that the foundation of the Ghost Way lay in confronting one's fears. One who mastered their inner demons could command the spirits without being disturbed. And Xiao Huan, with her innate talent, had already shown the rare potential to reach heights unseen for centuries. Then, without grand speeches or persuasion, he simply asked if she wished to learn. Xiao Huan hesitated, startled by the sudden offer. Her brows knitted uncertainly. Mr. Ghost did not pressure her. Instead, he took out a thin black book, silent, unmarked, mysterious, and tossed it to her. Inside, he explained, were his lifelong insights, methods of cultivation, techniques of smelting items, and principles unmatched in the world. She could read it or ignore it as she pleased. He turned to leave, but Xiao Huan quickly called out, asking for his name. He dismissed the idea with indifference. He had no wish to be remembered. Yet when she gathered her courage and shyly said that he had saved her life and taught her skills, and so she wished to call him teacher, Mr. Ghost stopped dead in his tracks. For a long moment he simply stood there, trembling ever so slightly beneath the black veil. When he finally turned, the gleam in his eyes revealed an emotion so rare it seemed foreign to him, an emotion somewhere between surprise and deep, aching sorrow. He accepted. Then, almost reluctantly, he pulled another item from his robes, a string of 7 dark triangular pieces with mysterious red patterns. He placed them in her hands. The pieces felt cold, faintly pulsing with energy, carrying the scent of old blood. He told her this treasure, called the Blood Jade Bone piece, could greatly enhance her Ghost Way abilities. possibly raising her level several ranks beyond her current limitations. Xiao Huan was thrilled, holding the gift as if it were a treasure of immeasurable value. Zhou Yixian, watching from afar, merely sighed at her naive delight. Mr. Ghost stood before her for a moment longer, his gaze complicated. Then he looked toward the sky and said that if she grew strong in the future, he hoped she could save someone for him. He did not say whom. He simply turned sharply and vanished into the night, dissolving into the forest like a fading shadow. Xiao Huan stared after him, an unexpected feeling of warmth blooming in her chest, as though she had found a strange, distant connection to the man in black. Zhou Yixian hurried over and snatched up the triangular pieces from her hand. Examining them with a scowl, he claimed they were made from the skull of an extremely yin person, refined with countless suffering souls. Xiao Huan could not see anything of the sort. The pieces looked more like dark jade than bone, and she teasingly doubted his explanation. Zhou Yixian erupted in indignation, complaining that she now trusted that ghost-like man more than her own grandfather. Laughing sweetly, Xiao Huan tucked the treasure into her robes, promising she would only use it for good, never evil. Zhou Yixian grumbled, unconvinced, and stomped away, still muttering to himself. Zhou Yixian snorted, turned and walked, mumbling to himself, "It'd be a wonder if I believe you." Xiao Huan he laughed, extremely sweet and charming, followed along. In this episode, we saw the story unfold across 4 full parts, each revealing more of Xie Lian's journey. In the first part, we followed his quiet observations of the world around him and the lingering marks of a fallen kingdom. In the second part, the tension between Xie Lian, Feng Xin, and Mu Qing grew heavier as old wounds resurfaced. The third part explored Xie Lian's interactions with Hua Cheng, showing a mix of mystery, sincerity, and unspoken emotion. And in the fourth part, we watched Xie Lian uncover more about the Wind Master's past, learning how celestial titles shape one's path after ascending. What happens next? Stay tuned for the next episode of Jade Dynasty. If you enjoyed this episode or found it interesting, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the newest updates on Xie Lian's journey. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye, and see you again in the upcoming videos.